Good evening and welcome to NTD UK News. I'm Stuart Lees and here are today's top stories. The CEO of budget airline Easyjet questions Boris Johnson's plan for restarting international travel. The government's scientific advisors say the next stage of lockdown easing won't overwhelm the NHS. And a senior official of the European Medicines Agency says he believes there is a clear link between Astrazeneca vaccine and blood clots. An airline boss is criticizing the government's plans to restart travel. The CEO of Easyjet has questioned the use of costly PCR tests, which will be mandatory when traveling to low-risk countries. NTD's Neil Woodrow brings us more.
Easyjet CEO says the cost of a PCR test exceeds that of an average Easyjet ticket. He says many families then couldn't afford international travel. A PCR test is used to help identify virus variants. On Tuesday, in response, the Prime Minister said,
I do think we want to make things as easy as we possibly can. I think there is the boss of Easyjet is right to focus on this issue. We're going to see what we can do to make things as flexible and as affordable as possible.
Easyjet CEO suggests the use of rapid tests instead. These cheaper alternatives are being rolled out to all in England for free from Friday.
We have to be realistic. A lot of the destinations that we want to go to at the moment are suffering a new wave of the illness of COVID, as we know. It's not going to, we can't do it immediately. But that doesn't mean that we've given up on May the 17th.
The 17th of May is the date the government said it would permit the public to travel again for recreational purposes. It said on Monday its Global Travel Task Force will set out plans for this well before the 17th and give further details then of the new risk-based traffic light system. For green countries, there's no isolation requirement on return to the UK. For the current red list, there is. And an amber category is added for countries in between. Risk is based on countries' COVID-19 vaccinations, infection rates and the prevalence of virus variants. Further criticism came from London International Airport Heathrow CEO, saying the aviation industry needs a clearer timeline. Everyone wishing to go abroad is hoping for good news before May 17th. For the moment, the government advises people not to book summer holidays abroad until the picture is clearer. Neil Woodrow, NTD News, Epsom, Surrey.
Scientific advisors say the next stage of easing restrictions isn't likely to overwhelm the NHS, but they say the virus could peak later in the year. Here's NTD's Jane Well with more.
The Prime Minister, characteristically upbeat, confirms England is on track in its plan for lockdown easing.
We set out our roadmap and we're sticking in it. And I want to stress that we see nothing in the present data that makes us think that we will have to deviate from that roadmap.
But still a word of caution.
And you know I'm going to say this. We can't be complacent. We can see the waves of sickness afflicting other countries, and we've seen how this story goes.
In a paper published on Monday, the government's scientific advisors say that this last easing of restrictions is unlikely to overwhelm the NHS. But it did warn that in the later stages of the roadmap, hospital admissions could rise again. One of those models or scenarios is that hospital admissions could be as high as they were in January this year. Most say that the virus is likely to peak again, though not to those levels. With many unknown factors, it's a tricky balance for policymakers. Jane Werrell, NTD News, London.
Imagine the next time you enter a pub, you need to show your vaccine passport. While the government has not yet confirmed such certificates will come, Londoners are sceptical.
The government says it has not made a decision yet about the long-term use of COVID-19 vaccine passports in England. Londoners are broadly sceptical of requiring such certificates to enter pubs and restaurants.
Because it's like forcing people to have the vaccine. And we had some cases where people had the vaccine and they got really ill or something happened.
I don't think we need it. We don't have vaccine passports for the flu. So I say scrap it and let's just get on with life again. Stop trying to control the people.
But some find vaccine passports might be useful for attending events and reopening public life.
I don't know, it's a difficult one. I guess it's a good thing because it means that things can open up quickly, but then it's sort of saying you either get the vaccine or you don't go out.
For essential stuff, I think it could be problematic, but for cinemas, theatres, that sort of thing, I can see the use of it.
England's indoor hospitality venues are scheduled to reopen in mid-May. Prime Minister Boris Johnson said on Tuesday vaccine passports would not be rolled out until well after that. Some Tory rebels are against the certificates, and Labour's Health Shadow Secretary says he will not support the passports for everyday activities like shopping.
A senior European expert has said it is clear there is a link between the Astrazeneca vaccine and blood clots in the brain. The head of vaccine strategy for the European Medicines Agency made the claim in an interview with an Italian newspaper. Marco Cavalleri said it is clear that there is an association between the vaccine and the rare blood clots. But he said the possible causes are still unknown. The UK's medicines regulator MHRA said last week that 7 people have died of blood clots after receiving the jab. But both the European and the UK regulators have said that the benefits still outweigh the risks. And in other news, 6 people are charged following Kill the Bill protests in central London on Saturday. 10 police officers were injured during the protests.
According to the Met Police, 2 men and 4 women were charged and will appear in court later this month. 3 women and a man between 23 and 39 years old were charged with assaulting an emergency services worker. A woman and a man were charged for obstructing a constable. Police also say 1 person was issued with a penalty notice for a public order offence. 9 were reported for fines under the health protection regulations. Police arrested 107 people during the protest, the vast majority for breaching the peace. They have been either released on bail, released under investigation, or released with no further action. During a violent protest in Bristol last month, a police station was besieged, windows were smashed, a police van was burned, and 40 officers were assaulted, along with 1 member of the media. The demonstrations arose against the proposed Police, Crime, Sentencing and Courts Bill, which would give police more powers to restrict protests. It includes imposing restrictions on protests noisy enough to cause intimidation or harassment, or serious unease or distress to bystanders. The bill would also increase the sentence received for damaging memorials. These new powers were proposed in response to several disruptive Black Lives Matter and Extinction Rebellion protests last year. Such protests caused road closures, disruption of newspaper printing, and vandalism of statues.
Prime Minister Boris Johnson says he has offered his strong support to Ukraine over the destabilizing Russian military activity on Ukraine's border.
Boris Johnson says he spoke to Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky over the phone on Monday. The Prime Minister wrote in a tweet that he reiterated the UK's unwavering support for Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity. Zelensky thanked Johnson for his continued support. He posted, "We feel that Ukraine is not alone. We are supported by the G7 countries. The NATO map is a top priority for Ukraine." The United States says it's ready to engage. The US State Department said on Monday it finds the reports of Russian military movements on Ukraine's border credible and has asked Moscow to explain provocations. US President Biden also reassured Zelensky of his unwavering support last week. Zelensky is calling on NATO members to strengthen their military presence in the Black Sea region to act as a powerful deterrent to Russia. He also says a path towards membership of NATO is the only way to end the war. Ukraine has reported on an ongoing build-up of Russian troops since Thursday, moving towards bordering eastern Ukraine, where Russia-backed separatists are holding parts of the country's Donbas region. Ukrainian troops have battled Russian-backed separatists in the region, and Ukraine says since 2014 the conflicts have killed 14,000 people. Last week, Ukrainian defense officials revealed the UK and Ukraine will have joint military drills this summer involving NATO member troops, a step that could irritate Moscow. The Kremlin said any deployment of NATO troops to Ukraine threatens stability near Russia's borders and may force Moscow to take extra measures to ensure its own security.
Over the past few nights, several unionist areas of Northern Ireland have seen unrest. It's part of rising post-Brexit tensions in the region.
Police and politicians in Northern Ireland appealed for calm on Monday after another night of violence saw people start fires and pelt officers with bricks and petrol bombs. The police service of Northern Ireland said officers were attacked in Londonderry on Sunday night. There was also unrest in two pro-British unionist areas near Belfast. Further unrest was reported on Monday night. It comes amid rising tensions over post-Brexit trade rules for Northern Ireland and worsening relations between the parties in the power-sharing Belfast government. Unionists are also angry at a decision not to prosecute Sinn Féin politicians who attended a funeral of a senior Republican figure last year during COVID-19 restrictions. Chief Superintendent Darren Jones condemned the unrest. He called it senseless and reckless criminal behaviour that does nothing but cause damage to the community. Police said most of those involved were teenagers. Chairman of the Police Federation of Northern Ireland, Mark Lindsay, said the violence is orchestrated. He told BBC Radio that older, more sinister elements use the youth and use children to achieve their aims. Brexit has shaken the delicate political balance in Northern Ireland. A new UK-EU trade deal has imposed custom checks on some goods moving between Northern Ireland and the rest of the UK. The arrangement was designed to avoid checks between Northern Ireland and Ireland. It's because an open Irish border has helped underpin the peace process built on the 1998 Good Friday Accord. That accord ended decades of violence in which more than 3,000 people died. Unionists say the new checks amount to a new border in the Irish Sea between Northern Ireland and the rest of the UK. The Democratic Unionist Party has called for the Brexit deal to be scrapped.
The Metropolitan Police have found a male body in Epping Forest, Essex, while searching for a 19-year-old missing student, last seen on the 22nd of March.
The police have been carrying out searches for Richard de Corriere in Epping Forest for several days. On Monday afternoon, Essex police found a male body in a pond. Inquiries have been carried out to identify the body. Richard's family are being supported by specially trained officers. The 19-year-old student attending Oxford Brookes University has sickle cell disease. He has not been seen since 22nd of March, when he left home in Ladbroke Grove, West London. Richard was captured on CCTV walking alone on Smarts Lane, Lawton, 12 miles northeast of London after midnight on March the 23rd. His mother told the BBC last month that the 19-year-old student had been struggling to cope with his business and IT degree.
Data shows that the advertising of work-from-home jobs more than tripled in a year. But there is still a need for the office. NTD's Patrick Hayden has a look.
Job advertisements to work from home have more than tripled in a year. That's from February 2020 to February 2021. Restructuring firm New Street Consulting Group says 3 issues stand out as work environments are changing. It says that while work-from-home jobs are increasing, employees want an option to go into an office and interact with their colleagues, and that remote workers tend to increase the number of hours they work and spread those hours out, and that the increased accessibility to work remotely means that workers are finding it difficult to switch off from work. In response to this trend, the world's biggest serviced offices company IWG is now reviewing setting up locations in more rural areas. Patrick Hayden, NTD News, London.
Coming up, a new study reveals the secret terms and conditions of China's loans to developing countries. That and more when we return.